left school, worked in a tax office briefly. Used to spend a lot of time on the phone, used to do doodles, drawings. A mate was at art school, said, "You can get into art school with these, Tom." I thought, no. I didn't know anything about art, so I didn't do art school. So I went and worked in the car factory where my dad was working. So eventually I applied to this art school. He accepted me, a guy called Len McComb. I worked really hard on that foundation course. A lot of them were straight from school. I'd been working for 3 years, so I really went for it. I applied to Leicester Polytechnic to do fine art painting. Right at the end of the course, they gave me a camera. I went out and shot a roll of film and developed it. And on that first roll of film was this lady who spontaneously opened her coat when I said, "Can I take a picture?" And by chance, it was outside the post office and there was a crown above her head. I didn't see that, but I thought, well, that's fun. Next day, I went to Oxford. In those days, chemist shops sold cameras, and it was the same camera I've been using, a Rolly cord. You look down in it, 2 lenses. It was £30, so I bought it. That night, I went to get some fish and chips, and these girls got their chips, and they're waiting outside for these 2 boys. And I said, "Can I take a picture?" And that was the picture of Entleman, where the G is missing. This is on the second roll of film I ever shot. I thought photography, dead easy. It's a lot easier than painting. Really good picture, just like that. So gradually photography took over more, but because it was like the first BA in fine art, it still had the flavour of an old school art school. I actually made a couple of little films on the foundation course. So that's what I really wanted to do, was film, more than painting, more than photography, but film was really expensive. So when I left college, I thought, I'll just do photography for a bit. It's dead easy, I'll just see how I get on, and then here we are, 50 years later. So in the 70s, I'd go away on coach trips to the seaside, wherever the coach was going, and just spend the whole day photographing and come back on the coach. And then when I left college, I was living in a village in the last year called Syston. Someone suggested I apply to the Arts Council for a grant to photograph this village, where I photographed the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, everybody. And there was a job in the job centre for a photographer in Butlins holiday camp as a camera operator making happy snaps in Ayr in Scotland. And I'd photograph babies in the afternoon. At lunchtime, photograph people eating. And then at night time, all the bars were full, and you had to go around with your camera and flash gun. And it were interesting, I would make a note and I'd order copies for myself. And then later, all those happy snaps became the first handmade book I made, and the happy snaps were in that book, all the best ones. Being in Merseyside was really exciting. We got a flat and began to photograph whilst I was travelling from the bus, from the train. And that's where Liverpool work began. Just the place, I had no idea. It was just absolutely, really, really lucky that I ended up here. Everywhere I went was just really exciting. I had favourite routes. That little bit of Kensington from the Royal Hospital onwards, there's about 6 stops, there's about 50 pubs in the beginning. Stanley Road, Bootle, I went that way, again for about 2 years, just photographing because it was so interesting. It's like everywhere was like seemed to be full of meaning, and there was just such a lot of energy. So I was just feeding off the energy of the people and the place, Yeah, I'd always ask permission for a long time, and then you're there and you see all this stuff going on around you, you think, oh, what was that, And I tried to start to learn to use a small camera, to do what I call candid pictures, catch people without them seeing me. For me, it was like natural, to do colour. But colour was really expensive, so I would go in between the two. It might be 30 rolls a week I'd shoot. So I'd put them into tanks that took 10 in a tank. And you put the developer in and you agitate it like this. You pour it out, you fix it, you wash it, you hang them up to dry, you do the next 10. And then you have to cut them up into strips of 6, do contact prints, look at them with a magnifying glass, decide which ones to print, put little arrows underneath them, and then go in and make 100 work prints once a week as well. Yeah, the lab I used to use actually paid to have a negative carrier, which would give me the whole image. And I would still get what's called a machine print. So it was an analog print, but done with a machine, but it was a bit more contrasty than a normal enlargement, and cheaper. This looks absolutely beautiful, big. So this guy was used to drive a local bus, so I knew him a bit. And I gave him a print like this, which is on his wall. Saw him later, and he married to someone else, but I think the print was still on the wall. Hope so, anyway. I lived near New Brighton, so in the summer there was always loads of people around. So I was exploring the whole thing about families and stuff. Because I lived there, I'd get to know people, and you'd photograph them over a long time. Sometimes I photographed them when they were kids themselves, and then I see them later in the supermarket with their own kids. In the 80s, and you got to New Brighton, if you walked along the prom from where we lived, was a nightclub called the Chelsea Reach. So every Friday night, Saturday night, and on a Monday, which is a free night, kind of alternative night, I'd go and photograph. At the end of the night, it was the only sign there was actually a slow dance at the Chelsea. So there was only ever one, maybe two dances right at the end, when people could actually get up close together. And it was usually really, really low light, almost pitch black. So to actually make some pictures, you were really intruded in the situation. So I'd only ever make a few. It helped that I knew a lot of the people by sight, at least. You know, so by this time I was already been there like 5 or 6 years, and people always see me out with the camera. Already got the nickname Photie Man. We had the dummy book was all taped up with parcel tape and fallen apart, fingerprints all over it, and Stidle printed it exactly like this with Podrig's drawing, which was the cover. So this is what the local kids in New Brighton called me. And one of these guys, I hadn't seen him for years, like 20 years later, he's getting on a bus in Birkenhead. I said, how you doing? I haven't seen you for years. He's working in London, you know, he's with a friend. He said, where's your camera, Photie Man? And I had the Leica here, and I went it like that, you know. Yeah, and then he slapped his mate on the shoulder and said, Photie Man. And I saw his Podrig and he came up with the cover. I go across on the ferry boat every day, so that was another project. So I'd photograph as I went across on the ferry boat, and you'd see Camelaird shipyard. And then maybe in 1993, I read about that the yard was closing down. So I photographed there for like 3 years as it gradually wound down and made people redundant. So it's another brand new print from the shipyard, done in like 1995 maybe. So that's sort of big negatives. So I was talking about the difference in quality. This one here, which is a hand print, which is a nice print, but I mean this looks really, really good at 20 by 30 inches, but we could go almost life size and it would become something else. We don't know till we try it. So I'd imagine it would be, you know, this kind of size. Well, the other thing which goes through all these things is the Irish work. The land there is pretty poor, it's flat, it rains all the time, it's grey. But just it all seemed full of meaning for me. I began to photograph there, and I've done that every single year. The landscape thing starts seriously in the 90s with the big revolving panoramic camera then, because I had that. I thought, oh, try this at the football. You can use it handheld on a fast shutter speed, 250th of a second, it goes shoo. And then I found another revolving camera called a wide lux, a 35mm. It suited the football because there's lots of stuff coming at you from different directions. And because it's very democratic, you don't just choose one decisive moment there. It has to work kind of here and here and here, and make a different kind of picture. So, yeah, that's off a 35mm negative. I don't know, 30 years ago, whatever. Just look at the colour. It's just absolutely beautiful. It is infinite. What is really remarkable about this exhibition, I think, is the fact that 99% is all analogue. It's really hard won. Every big picture's done in the darkroom. I guess the way I'm dealing with all the material, it's always been never finished. It's all fluid, you know. I'm still figuring out, and you know, for life changes and the way pictures work changes. So that's a really interesting thing about photography.